Welcome to Business of Design. Business of Design is the world's best business training for interior design professionals like you. The Business of Design podcast offers immediate, actionable strategies and a glimpse into some of the many field-tested, proven systems you can implement to transform your business and your life. After the show, head to businessofdesign.com and get started with the BOD 15-step project management strategy and 6 foundational programs. Together, they deliver the systems, procedures, and strategies you need to run a successful, highly profitable design business. There's no theory here. The complete BOD business model is yours through Business of Design membership. Business of Design. There's only one. And now, your BOD Advocate-in-Chief, Kimberley Seldon.
Hello, you fabulous interior design professional. Welcome to Business of Design, episode 335, Give and Take, with Mary Lou and Marc Fulson. Yes, a husband and wife team. If you are a solopreneur like I am, you may have harbored a secret fantasy, like I have for so many years, that it would be amazing to have a business partner. We've had lots of partners on the show before, and we've even had married couples. We've had partners where he's a contractor and she's the designer, and all of that seems pretty amazing. I'm sure it's not without its challenges, but in this episode, you're not going to hear so many challenges as you're going to hear how this couple gives and takes. They use each of their strengths to bring a better experience, a better brand experience to their clients. Interestingly, we're going to hear Marc mention that he's retired Air Force, which is amazing. And we're going to learn that Mary Lou is actually, in many cases, the tougher of the two of them when it comes to being discerning about who they will take on as a client and who they won't take on. They have really practical advice where they share some of the things that have worked for them and some of the things that haven't worked for them. And they haven't been in business that long. So to see them make such great strides so quickly is really exciting. I remember meeting them. I was speaking at Las Vegas, and I could see them the entire time I was talking. They were just like, yes, yes, yes. And they came up afterwards. And man, oh man, have they ever decided to really embrace process and systems and go for it. I think this is a highly motivating episode. I know you're going to love them. They are absolutely adorable. And it's totally not fair, but they're beautiful people and they eat donuts. So all kinds of things are wrong with this scenario, but that will make more sense when you listen to the episode, I promise. The name of their company is Fulson & Company. It's a boutique, family-owned and operated interior design company servicing the Colorado area and beyond. They love to create experiences for their clients, with Mary Lou acting as the principal designer and Marc as business support. Together, they are raising 4 boys. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a lot of kids, boy, I'll tell you. But I suspect those are 4 happy little guys. Episode 335, Give and Take. You know, we always have such a hard time naming the episodes because there's a moment in this show where Marc says, if you give better service, you'll increase your net worth. And so I'm like, that's it. That's a tagline. I love that. That makes so much sense. But then we went on to talk about so many other things. We came back to give and take because it does seem to me there's this beautiful tension between these two where he steps forward sometimes and she steps forward other times. And I'm sure the clients appreciate that. Now, I don't have a partner. I definitely think it's super cool and I wish I did. But I can adapt some of the strategies that Mary Lou and Marc share in this episode by putting on a virtual hat, if you will, when it's my turn to step up and talk business, or when I need to have a softer approach maybe and be more empathetic with my clients. I can kind of visualize stepping into that different character, even though it's just me. Oh, it's a great episode, and we're so glad you're here. Aren't we, Cheryl?
We are. And you know what? For me personally, so many of our members do start out as longtime podcast listeners. And when I finally get on the phone with them, I hear all the time that they feel like they already know me because they hear me weekly on the podcast just from doing my little announcements. I'm not even on here that long, but that's always nice to hear. So thank you all for listening. We do still have room for the BOD 15 in both Toronto and Winchester happening in October. So if you're interested in joining us, please head to the website to check out those details and get registered. Spaces are limited. And then I also want to do a shout out for the BOD contracts. I feel like I've had a lot of questions about them lately in terms of, do you start with them? Do you start with membership? What do I need if I'm just getting started with the BOD 15? And one thing we always emphasize, and the reason why we have such great member pricing on all of our products, but specifically the contracts, is that the contracts follow the BOD 15. And they explain all of the systems and procedures that we teach within BOD membership in a way that makes sense to your clients and as it applies to them. So you can't stand behind your contract and follow your own rules if you're not already using those systems. So a lot of members do sign up for membership, get the contracts right away and implement them together. That absolutely works. If you're brand new and trying to make a decision between the two, I always emphasize starting with membership so that you have those systems in place. And then you're purchasing the contract and using it to enforce the systems that you've just learned. Within the BOD shop, you're going to click on documents and we have our hourly and flat fee contracts. Also available is the BOD contract for commercial projects, which also follows the BOD 15. Then we also have our trade partner agreement, which is in there as well as one of our contracts, which is the contract that you're going to have to explain your systems, procedures, and on-site expectations for your A team. So all of that is available in the BOD shop. So head to businessofdesign.com. Thanks so much.
Well, you missed it, everybody. We had a great conversation about donuts, and we found out that Mary Lou loves glazed donuts. And just this one time, Mark, you didn't eat the extra glazed donut. You gave it to a neighbor?
Yes, like surprisingly, I had 8 extra donuts, and I said, I'm going to eat all of these so they don't go in the trash. So I said, hey, neighbors, do you want to eat donuts? And one of the guys took the glazed donut, and I was like, oh, no, that's what Mary Lou probably wants. I regretted it instantly.
So I went in to look in the box, and I was like, hey, where'd that glazed donut go?
See, that is just not the one I would reach for. I haven't had a donut in a long time because it just feels like the kind of thing you probably don't need to experiment with. But I guess it was Easter, and you had all these extra donuts, and there you go. Well, it's not the first and only time there's going to be like questions of who did that if you work together like you guys do. So tell us about Fulson & Co. and how you share the workload of being married partners and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I guess it started, we've been working together our whole marriage, basically, but more officially, just recently, Mark retired from the Air Force. And after 20 years.
Amazing. Thank you for your service. And that's a whole other, we have to have a whole conversation about what it's like to be in partnership with somebody who's former Air Force. I imagine that means that there's some kind of order and.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll have that conversation afterwards.
Yes. I'll give you one little tidbit. It was funny because as we started working more officially together and Mark was working at home with me, he would say, so what's on your agenda today? And I would say, are you?
That didn't go very well.
I was like, no, I don't really need you to schedule my agenda today.
Yeah.
But
that's when Mary was like, maybe you should go to the office. Maybe you should work from the office and not from home. So, I was like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
So.
I also like the idea of you hanging out with all your Air Force buddies and then telling them that what you were going to do after the Air Force. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to build, do this decorating thing on the side here. Like, did they give you grief about that?
Yeah, I got a lot of when the puppy kind of turns their head to the side, that kind of look, and I'm like, really, guys, it's big business. Like, it's going to the market, it's $1 billion business. They didn't want to hear any of that. So, and I had moments where I had to really remind myself, this is going to be so rewarding, so exciting, because for us, it's all about service, right? Yeah. You increase your service, you increase your net worth and your income, and I was like, I served in the military, and it's definitely a joint effort, by the way. Whenever you see a military member, thank their spouse, because there's no way I could have had a 20-year career without my bride and my kids supporting me. We moved a few times, New Mexico, Vegas, LA, and then back to here, and And so I thank my bride for supporting me. And you know, I was like, hey, we served in the military. We were helping like keep our nation safe. Now we're serving families and homes and businesses because, you know, Mary Lou's always kind of reminded me, you know, like the home and design, it sets the background for all your memories. And for us, we're just realizing we're passionate about family. We have 4 little bambinos, 4 boys, 12, 10, 6, and 4. And as we're eating donuts and eating lamb. She's a superwoman. How does she do it? Yeah, she's the same.
I know, and I'm thinking
Kimberly's over here shaking her head for you guys can't see.
4 boys. Like, of course you had 4 boys because it's like boom, 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 boom. Like, it's so orderly and organized. You guys make it look easy. 4. That's a lot of boys in the house.
It's a lot of boys. I'm the girliest girl, and so I'm constantly looking at them going, I don't understand. What is it that you want to do? I don't.
Why do you want to wrestle? Don't. I don't want to play Legos. I want to just give you food and you go downstairs. Yeah. One thing, she is a designer, attention to details. And we work really well together because she's attention to details. I'm more like sales, loosey-goosey, kind of HR, operations type stuff. And she's like, this, how many inches off the center will this, sink be? And I think that balances us out. But she planned the birth of our kids. We'll have one in each season.
I did do that. Yeah, we have a winter, a spring, a fall, and am I missing one? A summer baby, yeah. So.
That's a designer.
We won't tell the summer baby you couldn't remember him.
I will. He's the first too, so oops.
Yeah, but that does help. She's a detail person, and I'm kind of more of a generalist kind of. But sometimes I get loosey goosey. Like sometimes we go on a design consultation together, and I started kind of. I'm learning so much working with Mary Lou.
He was throwing design details out there, and I was like, no, that's not what we're going to do.
Yeah, I was like, you can do this over here in this corner. And Mary Lou would give me suddenly that look she's like, actually, we're going to go in this direction. I was like, yeah. So I learned, for those that are listening, if you have a assistant or a husband helping, don't recommend any design ideas. Just stay in your lane. I'm the guy that I do a lot of mansplaining, so I get
that too. That is helpful, though.
Yeah, I get the husbands to open up the wallets and stuff like that, because sometimes you just need to hear a different way. Mary Lou will explain something. I'll say almost the exact same thing, but coming from me, sometimes it just certain personalities resonate with what she says, very technical, and some people resonate with my more, bubbly, lighthearted general comments and stuff.
Can you tell? Can you sort that out during the consultations? You kind of figure out oh, we've got this couple, and I can tell you right now, he responds better to Mary Lou, so she's going to take the lead. Have you fine-tuned some of that?
Sometimes, but not really. And lately, I've just been going on consultations myself, so maybe that's...
Yeah, and that's a lesson learned, because sometimes, I have a natural sales knack. Mary Lou, is reminding me, as I was getting ready to leave the Air Force, she's like, Mark, you got this. Remember, you've had this, since you were a kid, you were kind of into, entrepreneurship and stuff like that.
Can I tell a quick story about that, Kimberly?
Yes, please.
So Mark was telling me, I asked his brother, I was like, has Mark always been like this? And he said, yes, he has. So when he was in elementary school, he's 7 years old, he decided to sell his lunch. And then It got so successful that he started a lunch selling enterprise, with other kids. You don't want that? Okay, I'll broker it. Someone else will want it. Give it to me, and I will sell your lunch for you.
Oh my gosh, that's genius!
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
A little skinny, and they slapped my wrist a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was a good reminder that Mary Lou and my brother shared. I was like, oh yeah, I like this.
And his mom was like, where did you get all this money? And he was like, I don't know. I'm just, selling my lunch.
That is hilarious. I love that. Well, there has to be more positives, I guess, at this point, being in business together, or you wouldn't do it. So talk to us about how that looks day to day, who does what, and how do you keep those rules separate when you're partners?
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the kind of consultation is, on the consultations, Mary Lou's been going more by herself because I was just so passionate about helping everybody. I kind of lost the bubble that, design isn't for everyone. If people aren't willing to invest or they don't have the capital to invest, we can't help them. And it doesn't mean that like we're being mean to them, but it's just, we try to recommend people, hey, don't peanut butter spread. Don't do it yourself. Save and do a project well. But so I think sometimes in the sale, I'm like, come on, Mary Lou, this house is ugly. We need to help them. Let's just say yes. And so she has a better read for people where she's like, you know what, this is just not a good fit. And so,
so I do all of the design. So, but Mark actually does have a really good eye. And so he can, if I'll say like, hey, do you like this? And Mark was an engineer in the Air Force. And so he has a lot of technical skills. So when I went to school, when I was doing AutoCAD and SketchUp, sometimes I would say like, oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time with this angle. And Mark would say, oh, I've got that. Here you go. And
I had to crack out the trigonometry book. I didn't realize when she signed up, like a lot of people and our clients, they think interior design is just pillows and curtains. And I love some pillows and curtains. But like there's so much engineering technical elements to it. I did not know. We were staying up till like 1 a.m. with like a newborn. I was like, Mary Lou, like I was an engineer. Like, why are you doing engineering like when we're like with 2 babies? But it was a lot of fun. And so she does a lot of the design and I do a lot of more like the customer service operations. Hey, you know what? These invoices are coming in. You know what? These trades are having some issues. We try to check in with our trades. You got to have really good relationships, knowing, hey, who's going through a divorce, who's got a single parent dropping off kids. And, as, market can be a little bit weird. So some people might be low on jobs. And so we want to check in with them to say, hey, do you guys need a little extra work? Maybe we can rearrange some things, and so I do a lot of that kind of customer service, checking in, and then also checking on the trades. And I do a lot of networking. So, we have a good relationship with architects and general contractors because you never know what design aesthetic a customer wants. And the GC for, mid-century modern is not the GC for a colonial. And so as I meet new people, like, hey, Mary Lee, you got to meet this person. Let's ask them some questions and see what you think of them.
It's like you've got your built-in PR person there. Like that would be wonderful if I had someone who could network for me. But there is a downside, I would think, to also being partners in the same business. Or maybe it's not a downside so much as it's major motivation. You have to be successful. You have 4 children who are counting on you guys to bring it. So has there ever been a moment where you woke up and thought, what have we done? And how are we going to continue to be successful?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that there definitely is some pressure there. Thankfully, since Mark retired, we kind of have we have his retirement from the Air Force. And so that we're able to pay our mortgage and we're able to eat. So, but yes. And then also Mark, he's doing commercial real estate as well. So he helps people buy buildings and lease them. So that helps too. But yes, there is pressure. And then since it's new for us, it's just been within a year of working together full time. Sometimes it's like, no, I'm going to do that. Like, that's not something that I really want you to do. And so there could be a little bit of tension. It's like how I mentioned before. He's like, hey, what are you doing today? And I was like, no, I don't need a boss.
Yeah. Please don't check in on me. And I think
you can check it on me. But
there's accountability. But we realize like having like a business meeting where, hey, there's time to talk about things we need to communicate. So it doesn't just pop up at like dinner or if we're having a meeting about something else, because I realized before we had those meetings, we do a lot of thinking and deep thinking on the road. So, we live here in Colorado Springs and, some of the best skiing is only about 2 hours away, like in Vail and Breckenridge. And we would go on these road trips and we're supposed to be going on vacation. And all of a sudden we're like, all right, let's plan our goals for 2023 for the design business. It's like, whoa, and sometimes there's actually good conversation, but sometimes it steals from just enjoying the moment. But now that we have like meetings to kind of process what needs to be communicated and otherwise just stay in your lane. Because I find when I'm going to procrastinate, I want to dig into the things that she's supposed to do. I'm like, oh yeah, what's going on with the design thing? 3 responses or whatever. It's like, aren't you supposed to be like checking on some invoices or like getting me added to that bank account? I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I didn't want to do that paperwork. So in some way, staying in your lane keeps you from procrastinating, not dealing with the non-sexy part. And there's always non-sexy parts of any business. And the commercial part is nice because, being a commercial broker, there is a natural relationship where, hey, somebody's building out like a dry bar or a restaurant or a boutique hotel. So some of my investors, they might be a business that wants to lease a space like a restaurant and saying, hey, well, if you need some design help, here's a couple companies, including my own, and maybe we can help you out. Or, we've had a couple clients looking at multiple units to make a a small property for Airbnbs, but each one having a theme. And it's like, yay, like, please, let's do that project. So it's been kind of nice. But you're right. Like, as an entrepreneur, having, either some strong reserves when you get started takes that tension off, because you do take the wrong projects when you're thirsty for money. Like, if you're like, I got to pay my mortgage, you'll take on the wrong client.
And there's definitely consequences for that. We've
done that before.
Tell us about the consequences, Mary Lou, because that felt genuine. Like, you're just like, oh yeah, you could feel it. You could feel that you've done it before. And describe that for people, because I think sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that they're the wrong client.
Yeah, like Marc was saying before, we want to help everyone. And so sometimes we take on the wrong clients, and then it's not helpful because you overextend yourself, or you can't meet their desires, what they want. Like, say, one of our clients, they just didn't have the right budget. And so we were trying to stretch ourselves and stretch the requirements so thin that mistakes happened. And so mistakes that weren't necessarily our faults, but nonetheless, they happened. And so then there's just so much tension on the relationship. And with this case, like, we got so far where we couldn't just say, sorry, we can't help you anymore.
Yeah, because once you take their money for goods or services, you're in. There's no exit. Yeah. It's like that. I always think of that roller coaster, where it says last chance to get off before you ride the, rocket launcher or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, you're in and you can't get off. It's also pretty demoralizing, I found too. Yeah. Like, it just suddenly I'm like, what an idiot. Why did I do this? And then I have to stay on that ride for another, a year sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, if you have a client that's giving you signals that they're not the right one, and you take them on, you're like you said, it's a roller coaster. You're just like tick, 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 and then you're like, well,
you're on that ride.
Where's the exit button? And because it's like a relationship, and if you're doing a custom home, we've been blessed to do some custom homes here in town, and it was an 18-month project. It's like a marriage, and so
you're with them for a very long time. So
so you got to figure out if they have nuances. You have to kind of flush those things out in a good screen at the beginning. That's something that we try to use, where we ask good questions. And also our consultation fee, it's strong. As you were encouraged us to increase it.
I was bugging you about that. What was it, and what is it now?
So it was $495, and now it's $725.
That's much better. That's much better. Yeah. I mean, I think it'll go higher, right? I think that's, but you're starting to weed out those customers who probably can't afford it anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. And one of the consequences, and what I was trying to do, was help them and make them happy, but I couldn't make them happy because I couldn't help them. And so then both of us were not happy.
Yeah. And some clients are just not happy. That's their inclination. And you can pick up on some of that. And that's not on you. You have to kind of identify that's their personality of just being dissatisfied or always wanting to haggle. And you just kind of just use your contract as like a business partner, saying, hey, my contract says these are the processes, these are the rules. And even if I'm a solo entrepreneur, you have to stick to those agreements in your contract, because people will try to get you to, oh yeah, can I give you half the money down, and can I change this process, change that process? And once you start compromising, you're just on a long slippery slope, and it gets only worse over time.
It's so hard. I completely agree with you. And I just had someone recently do this, and it hasn't happened to me in such a long time. I was kind of unprepared for it. They wanted to change my process a little bit. They wanted to not give me the deposit I asked for, but give me part of the deposit, and then later on give me the rest of the deposit. And then we would stagger the ordering, right? But it's amazing. You said, Mark's like, no, don't do it. But there was part of me, even though I know not to do it, there was part of me that was trying to, in my brain, figure out, why can't I be flexible and help these people out? And then the other part is like, what are you talking about? No, it's so hard. Yeah. I'm so wired to want to just help people and be flexible, I guess, And between the two of you, Mary Lou, you're less likely to do that than Marc. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I'm more that consequence that we were talking about. I was like, no, I really don't want to take them on. Mark must be nicer than me because he was like, we can help them.
But Mark, you're Air Force, and I would imagine like in the Air Force, you don't get to be flexible. You just get to be exact.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I think that's the challenge of being the boss, right? Or the boss and the COO, right? You're like, hey, this is our company. We can change our process. We rewrote the contract. We can change. And it's like, you should treat it. And I think that's some good advice that I heard from some of your training about, like, you have to behave like you're an employee, not like the boss. Because if you go to a consultation and you're an employee, you say, hey, the boss says nope.
Yeah,
this is the policy. But if you go there like, I'm the boss, like, oh yeah, whatever we shake on, that's the agreement. And I think that's where you can open yourself up for trouble. Like you said, with people saying, I want to give you half down, because at that point you want to financing the project. And
yeah, we're not the Bank of Fulson.
We're not the Bank of Fulson. That day might come, but you could have relationships with people if financing is an issue. Like, hey, I know a couple of bankers. You can get a home equity line of credit, or there's other companies that do lending for certain things, like for some of the trades, like cabinets. And then this way, it gives them opportunity to lower that monthly payment or that initial cost of entry, but keeps us out of it, So, yeah, it's a journey.
I think what's interesting, though, is that, so I did communications in undergrad and Mark did engineering. And then for graduate degree, I did interior architecture and Mark did counseling. So, like, we kind of crisscross paths. So,
yeah. So maybe
that's why he's a softie.
My gentler, softer side. You're right.
So, yeah.
You guys are just
karate chops.
Yeah, you guys are wired for success. And by the way, I didn't say this off the top, but Mary Lou, you went to UCLA.
I did.
Yeah,
yes.
so she's a smarty pants too. Like we're talking about, you guys have everything you need to be hugely successful, and you're only a year in. I just can't even imagine what it looks like, 9 years down the road at your 10th anniversary, where you'll be and how big you'll be and how successful you'll be.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We're excited.
Yeah, like we received that blessing and those kind words, and it was wonderful that Mary Lou started right after UCLA. So that was about coming up on 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. But you're right, part-time to full-time is definitely a shift when you're like, all right, so, the phone's not ringing. What do? We need to be posting. We need to be putting out marketing material. We need to be calling our network. And it's different because you're like, ooh, I'm calling my network to check in and see how they're doing. But you have to at some point make the ask of saying, hey, do you know anybody that needs my services? And Mary Lou's only 3 years younger than me, but she's definitely feels very more tech savvy. She's more of a text person. So I'm always like, give him a call, Mary Lou. She's like, I don't like calling
I'm
people.
a millennial.
I'm an introvert and a millennial. And so why are you telling me to call people?
Yeah, so I'm like, pick up the phone. What do you mean?
So I've gotten better. As we work together, I started to realize, what? Actually, our younger clients, even our younger investors on the commercial side, they do like a message on social media better, and they do like text better. So I was like, actually, yeah, just feel it out. And I've actually been kind of changing the way I approach our clients, instead of saying, oh, I want to talk to you and see how the kids are doing and how Easter was and the lamb. Yeah. And no, they want to text like, hey, do you want to buy a building, or do you want to some furniture for this next market coming up? And keep it simple.
I've had to learn to ask my clients directly when I meet them what communication style they prefer. And I was really surprised to learn that I have clients who want a phone call, and clients who want an email, and clients who prefer to work by text. I don't really text because I feel like text is for family and friends and immediacy. Like I need an answer right this second. But I don't know. I guess that it's all changing, right? Who knows? But the clients who want a phone call, that was really hard for me because I just kind of tend to go right to here's what I need, instead of like, how was Easter? Did the kids come over? What did you make dinner? Did you have it catered? Like, it's harder for me to do that.
It's harder for me too.
Yeah. It's almost like putting money in the relationship. There's the counseling hat. Yeah. Like putting in the money in the relationship bank. Yeah. Because when hey, so-and-so's, your kid's having surgery in about 6 weeks. Oh, that's why you haven't made any selections or given me any feedback on they don't make selections, but see, that's my training. Clients don't make selections, but you haven't approved any of the requirements. The reason why you're not getting back to me is because you're dealing with some adversity, or if there's a challenge, like, oh yeah, I thought the estimate was it's going to be here in 30 weeks. Is actually 50 weeks. By having that relational capital, I think it helps land some of those difficulties. We've had some of that during COVID, where the timeline was just insane, but having that relational connection really helped. And even like with people seeing things on Pinterest, like some people are so tied up on trends, like, oh, I saw this trend and I want this trend. So they want to force this like design requirement into their project. And what we've learned is that we try to just really lean on like Mary Lou's background on architecture history to help redirect them, kind of remind them some of the background of where timeless and classic design comes from, some of these trends.
Yes. So I love timeless and classic, and I try to steer my clients away from trends. It's hard because in Colorado, we're technically in the middle of the country. And as you know, trends come from the coast like New York and LA, and then they slowly trickle their way here to Colorado. And we're about 10 years behind. Yeah. And so everyone is still wanting to paint everything gray. And I'm like, please stop. Like, we can't paint everything gray. Yes.
I tell my client trends are like trans fats.
Yeah,
really fun, but you shouldn't have them very often,
Like the donuts.
Exactly like the donut. We're back to the donuts. We're back to the donuts.
I like that.
What other kind of rules to live by have you guys adapted early in your early days of working together in terms of like, you mentioned, Mark, not letting the clients change your process. Like, are there other things that are for you guys that are just hard and fast rules you're really leaning into now?
Well, one that comes to mind is don't let your clients come to the stone yard, because it's a lot of fun without them. And if you bring them, you're going to be in there for hours. And it's like, hey, we paid for the stone twice for as many times we went back to the stone yard. So it's really about give me the requirement and I'm going to give you a design. And part of the process we've done is when we're talking to architects and general contractors, because there's pros and cons of being the general contractor yourself. Good, kudos to you for being the general contractor and going through that process. I love that, Kimberly. I love that. Because, as you're probably lamenting it's a joy. There's revenue, but it's a lot of work and some liability there, plenty of liability. And so as we're finding those people, we ask them questions and kind of vet them. Like, hey, we bring you a client. We're going to work together as a three-legged stool, architect, general contractor, and designer. We're not going to undercut each other, right? Like, or with the trades, you're my tile guy, but you're not going to try to start designing and giving the client directly ideas, because we've struggled with that, and Mary Lou had to nip it in the butt. She can be the one that really nips things in the butt sometimes, which is really good. Yeah,
I guess that could be one of our roles that we have, is that we don't step on each other's toes as industry partners, is that we're working together. And if I bring you the client, then I'm the lead. But if you bring me the client, you can possibly be the lead, but I still give you the requirements, but I won't step on your toes. But you know what I mean? But just, I'm not going to go behind your back to the client.
So, because thankfully, like Mary Lou's program at UCLA, she learned about, code for how far,
just codes for everything.
Codes for everything. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. I'm over here like,
I learned about every code, Mark.
Thing, man, as I'm doing these hand motions. But codes for everything. And so sometimes the general contractor is like, oh, yeah, I'm going to put the bathroom here because the water's here. And Mary's like, no. Like, the design.
That may be easy, but it's not the best for ergonomics or like aesthetics or,
Exactly. So. That's not the design. I'm trying to work nice, clean lines, make symmetry, and what's easy isn't always best. And so I think that was one of those things that we really applied. I think the working hours too, like, hey.
Oh yeah. Actually, when you said texting, I've stopped texting my clients as well. Like communication, I'm looking actually into, I do need an eye soon. I need someone to answer my phone.
Yeah.
And I'm looking into getting just a business phone number, because I'm like, I really would like a boundary. Like, I want my phone number to be for like my actual friends and family members, and I don't want everybody to have my personal number. So I think we're starting to implement those things, and we've learned that I have like really set business hours as well. Like, I don't answer the phone after business hours or text on weekends or send emails on weekends. I don't do any of that anymore.
Yeah. So, and it's been nice. It takes the stress off, because we found ourselves being nervous to open our phone. Like, we're like, at one point, we deleted, the email app on our phone because we're just worried about is there going to be another kind of non-emergency thing popping up in our email? And
because if it gives you a notification, I felt like I had to respond. And so I was like, no, I don't have to respond today. Like I can respond on Monday. Like it's just decor or architecture. Like it's not a life or death kind of thing. It's okay.
There's no such thing as a decorating emergency. No such thing. Well, I mean, you guys have only been doing this a year, as I said, but you already have such a strong and solid foundation, partly because of your education and partly because of work experience. So I think the sky's the limit. I'm going to be really excited to watch and see how far you go. We like to end every episode with design intervention, just a great piece of advice that you'd like to share with anybody who's listening or everybody who's listening.
Yes. So can I make it a little bit longer? I know it's supposed to be like short.
No, you go for it.
So, okay. Well, what brought me to you, Kimberly, is my very first job. It was huge. It was like 9,000 square feet and I got paid like barely anything. And yes, and I it did. And my processes were not great. And I was like, there has to be a better way for this because this just doesn't make any sense. And like I think like the general contractor got paid like 5 times more than I did or something.
10 times.
Or 10 times more.
Yeah. And he didn't do much work at all.
Yeah. And I was there like way more than he was. And so I was like, there has to be a better way. So I found you and I became a member of Business of Design. So my, what is this called?
The design intervention?
Don't DIY. So you're either making money or you're paying to learn. And paying could be in time, money, loss of revenue, opportunity costs, etc. So this advice is for us.
Yeah,
for getting help with like mentors and leaders as well as our clients. So I always tell my clients like, you don't want to DIY. Like, please don't. So then, hire your mentors or the teammates that you need, and don't get the cheap option. And just like our clients are paying for our knowledge and experience and network and time, invest in the professionals that will help you create better businesses. And this will also help you reach your goals.
I love that. Don't DIY. And you can't cater to people who want to DIY either. You just can't because you can't be profitable. And if you can't be profitable, you can't sustain it. And you have 4 boys. 4 boys. That's a lot of boy to feed.
Yes, exactly.
Our oldest is taller than me, which is, I went to give him a hug last week and my chin hit his shoulder and I was like, oh my gosh, that hasn't happened before.
Oh.
So we have lots of boys.
Yeah, and then something like we saw one person on social media say, I could design your room for $200. And Mary was like,
I was like, you mean an hour, right? Yes. So we just, as an industry, we need standards together because if not, it's not good for any of us for someone to do a $200 room.
Yeah, we're undercutting each other and you have to do like 1,000 projects to make any money. And then you're super stressed, over leveraged and dropping things. So, don't cut yourself short.
No, and not only do you have to do a lot of projects to make any money, you've got to put money away because the day will come when you have to have knee surgery and you can't work for a little bit. You have to constantly be thinking about how is this going to be sustainable for my life, for the life of my family, right? For my whole life. How am I going to put money away to retire if that's something I want to do? You said off the top, Mark, I love this. This is a big business. It's a really big business. Even if you're a solopreneur, you shouldn't be thinking small. You should be thinking, big growth, potentially big growth.
Yeah, you're right. $billion, trillion industry. And it's just, it's funny because I think people take advantage because it's a very woman dominated field because, if it was guys running this, we have a labor union and say, everybody charges 5% minimum, right? Yeah. And it's sad because, people feel like, oh, well, I'm hurting my client if I charge this price. And guys never think like that. Yeah. And so I think, I'm heartbroken how people are getting taken advantage of. And so we become an advocate saying like, no, people need to know their worth. And when you tell people the design fee, just say it and be quiet, and don't start negotiating with yourself, start giving discounts and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you making money does so many good things in the world, right? It puts money back into your community, your neighbors, you're supporting an entire, place that you live locally. So you making money is a good thing. It's not, it's not something you need to justify or feel bad about. And you guys are an amazing pair. You're welcome to come back on the show anytime or do a podcast takeover if you want to invite someone to interview. That would be great. And hopefully our paths will cross again.
Yeah.
We're going to be at High Point. I think I saw that you're going to be there too.
Oh, yes. I'm there on the Monday, I think, talking about payday.
Nice. We'll be in the audience.
Something to look for. Well, I'll say hello then. We'll get to hang out again, you guys. Thank you so much. It was so great to see you. No more donuts for a while, I don't think.
Yeah. I'll bring donuts. I'll try not to bring donuts to your.
Do not.
Can I pay for your books in donuts? Like, is that
I actually have like a point of pride that I've never had a Krispy Kreme donut. Like I'm kind of like proud of that because you know you're gonna like it, right? Like
no, they're gross.
Oh.
Are you a wine person? Like,
oh yeah. Hello. Yeah. Tequila more than wine, actually. Yeah. Tequila more than wine.
Okay.
Truth be told. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring some tequila to trade for books. Like, I guess you need books.
All the books you want. Oh, you guys, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Stay well.
Thanks for listening and supporting the BOD mission to improve the industry one design business at a time. If you're ready to implement an exact business model for running a streamlined, profitable business, field tested by thousands of design professionals around the world, head to businessofdesign.com and get started today. It's time to dramatically improve your business and transform your life.